All right. As you guys head forward, like I said, you are seeing the first signs of maybe like some kind of real civilization up ahead past the ruins. And you could start hearing just a few little noises. Maybe you think a hammer hitting metal, maybe something like a backing up kind of alarm going off or some kind of large loading vehicle. But they're just faint. They're just a tickle in the ear. Now, as you guys are kind of straining to hear what might be up ahead, um, all of the sudden you hear this huge fucking burst of water. Just a giant explosion of water. And as you look off into the depths of the surface to your right, out of the water emerges the largest artificial structure that any of you have ever seen.
It's a Star Destroyer with a crab with a city on its back.
You guys have no idea what the hell kind of technology this is. It looks completely foreign to all of you. And as this thing rises up out of the water, you do indeed see that there appears to be lights and activity all along the top of it still going on, which means that apparently underwater, this community on top of it was active on the surface. And as it rose up out of the water, they continued staying active. So this wasn't something where people were like inside the structure previously, it rose up and now they've come out and are moving around. It looks almost like they weren't, it really didn't matter to them either way.
While it was subsurface, like so there was activity going on while they were underwater. This
Exactly.
Wasn't an island. This was okay.
Exactly.
Then, at a glance, can I tell? Does the city look like there's water running off of it, or possibly like it was protected by maybe some sort of like dome or field?
That's a great question. As you check that out, as you actually focus on that, you do indeed realize there does not appear to be water running off of the top like there should be. There should be tons of water streaming off of that surface, and all that's coming off is basically where those two eye-like sockets are. There's water from that line down, pouring out of the structure and down. So indeed, you think it may have been somehow dry, even underwater up there.
Does any of this creature look organic, or is it meant to look organic but purely mechanical from my viewpoint?
It looks completely like a simulacrum. It doesn't look organic at all, but that it does. Yes, it's made to mimic obviously a terrestrial crab. So, as it emerges, you guys hear a loud, almost like foghorn blare. But there is so much ultra low frequency to this sound that it makes all of you feel like your guts are kind of turning to liquid and you might all shit your pants. There's so much bass coming out from this horn that sounds that the ripples that it produces on the surface of the water actually turn into full waves and are coming in almost like synchronized timing at a super fast pace. And as the horn fades off, those larger, fast-paced waves sink back down, and it's basically relatively gentle on the surface of the water again. As you guys are watching, this thing doesn't seem to make any hostile moves towards the group, but after that loud horn signals, you guys see that a guard in the heavy armored suits in the front of your group seems to take out some kind of strange flare gun that has two barrels and points it skyward. As he pulls the trigger, two small rocket-like projectiles fire out, leaving trails of multicolored sparks behind. And as they fly up into the air, they both detonate simultaneously, producing a really, really bright yellowish orange light. And for just a moment, they combine in such a way that it almost looks like a sun It almost looks like a star with kind of a fiery corona going around the exterior of it. It's bright enough to really light up every little crevice of everything all around. You guys, all shadows are dispelled for just a moment, so it's super intense bright light. But it seems to fade very quickly. And as soon as that starts fading, after 3-4 seconds, one of the guards in the rear does the exact same thing and fires off the same kind of round. It makes the same effect, and as that little sun starts dying out after just a couple of seconds, the whole time everybody's continuing to move. As soon as that second one dies out, there's another kind of foghorn sound, but this one is much higher pitched, and it's very, very light and just kind of airy. There's no extra kind of sensation that goes along with it. It seems simply like some kind of signal. And as that short kind of blaring of that horn goes off, within just a couple of seconds, you hear lots of tumultuous kind of commotion in the water around the thing's legs and its torso, and it very quickly starts sinking back down into the water. You still don't see any noticeable activity on the surface, just small shapes kind of moving about their business, seemingly unconcerned with the motion of the world that they are living on. So, all right, the creature starts sinking back down into the water. You guys are continuing forward. Is there anything anybody does?
I want to focus as I'm driving as best as I can. Keep an eye on the road, not hitting anything or anyone. But try to get a good view of as it goes underwater, what's going on with the city. If I can see some type of barrier that's keeping the water out, or something that appears, or some type of a device, or anything.
Okay. Go ahead and roll a perception check for me.
As it popped out of the water, I took pictures of it after I got super shocked about the craziness.
Okay.
And after the blare of the horn, I almost stumbled with my camera in my hand, and then grabbed the camera and take the pictures again.
Okay. All right. You get some good pictures of all of this. You feel like these are definitely going to be interesting to go over later on, because this is definitely shit, like I said, none of you guys have seen before. Might be really good to have all of this evidence later. Go ahead.
I'm a big traveler, so seeing new things like this is always going to be in my photo album.
Fuck yeah, man. I would think Atlanteans have some pretty cool, like, I doubt they do slideshows. They do like 3D interactive hologram, fucking magically generated this, that, and the other kind of,
like a Star Wars hologram, but way
better
better quality.
Yeah, exactly. So
Not a bunch of blue vertical or horizontal lines. Like,
I mean, fuck, bro. I'd wind up, like, because of your class and stuff, you could try and find a little, like, drone that literally would just float along next to you and record everything. Like a little sphere that just kind of, you know what I mean? So
I know a craftsman that can help me out with that.
There you go. All right, so as you're looking, Ren sees that there does appear. What's that?
Idea that was that kind of an idea of like the city just popping up and being like, everything cool. Our group signaled them and they went back down.
Yeah, that's the impression you're getting. Yeah. As you're looking closely at it, you can definitely see what you would guess are some kind of shield emitters, some kind of energy field emitters, ringing the line right where the moisture seemed to stop. You don't see any kind of telltale signs of energy or a force shield until that upper line hits the water. And then you notice that the water is disturbed. Instead of instead of in the shape of the city as it submerges, it's disturbed in the shape of a perfect dome that goes up and over all of the buildings. And so by this, you're able to tell, yes, it definitely is projecting a field that's keeping that whole top section completely dry and free of water.
And do you get the idea that it was off when it was out and it came back on when it was lowering?
No, you definitely get the feeling this thing stayed on the whole time. But it does look extremely advanced, even from a lot of the tech that you've seen. So you would guess that anything that advanced, it probably would be really difficult to like assault. It's probably very, very protected at all times. So yeah,
There's the power to generate something that large and consistently too.
yeah, yeah. And you're
With my
definitely
camera,
guessing that this thing's not only does it have claws, but that a lot of those kind of holes, they're definitely weapon systems or something of that nature. So
rising up out of the ground, and if I perceived it as being like, hey, this is just checking to make sure we're all good. Yeah, that there was definitely some defenses that probably aimed at us until we got the signal.
yeah,
Before
yeah.
go back then, yeah.
All right. Anything anyone
with
else
my
is? Go ahead.
yeah, with my camera, can I zoom in and see more inside of the area, like where I guess from the picture, like the what's on top of it, so to say?
Yeah. You actually, as you zoom in, you're able to see pretty clearly that, strangely enough, it's almost like a fucking medieval town. Um, it's just got very simple building structure. It looks like everything's made of fucking wood. Kind of old style painting schemes. Just thin, old looking glass. You're not seeing electric lines. You're not seeing telephone lines. You're not seeing, anything like that. And the tallest building looks like it's maybe 3 stories tall, if that. So they're not huge. Now you would say that a couple of the buildings, kind of more towards the center of the city, look like they might be more like a town hall or something like that. But even they just aren't. They're just not that big. Um,
So top
Do I
doesn't match
see
bottom at
any?
all.
yeah.
Do I see any beings, any people?
Okay, now interestingly, what you're seeing up there is you're seeing clothes that looks like it would be pretty much from an appropriate time and location and technological development state. So you're seeing like, top coats and top hats, and you're seeing, just almost like Victorian era kind of clothing mixed all the way up with like early like 1800s kind of stuff. So there's lots of different representations of older style clothing that would kind of match up with that. There's no bodies in the clothes. Everything is moving around independently as though they were just clothes being worn by normal creatures, but you see nothing inside of them whatsoever. Nothing. Um,
Oh,
now
I'm a zoom
these
in.
these clothes appear to be doing all of the normal mundane tasks that you would think anybody in a town like that would be doing. You see what appears to be people pulling water from a well. You see somebody up working to replace some of the shingles on a roof. Um, Shop owners going about their day. Vendors, merchants. You even see the uh, the yoke to what appears to be uh, a team of maybe oxen pulling a cart full of sundries and goods that has the reins being held by a suit of clothes with no owner. But you see the arms of this jacket go up and flick the reins of the yoke, and all of the sudden you can see the pace of the cart pick up speed. Um, it's very puzzling. Very puzzling. Okay, that's it.
Javier is disgusted when he looks at the futuristic city, not necessarily because of the city, but because he finds it abhorrent that this super technological being is in the shape of a natural animal, and that kind of puts him on edge.
Yeah.
Because he basically thinks to himself, for all their magic and metal, for all of their technological wonders, they still decided to take the shape of something natural. And
Note to
that kind
self:
of
don't make frost grenades that look like little bear heads.
no, no, that's probably not a good idea. OCC, not a good idea.
Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. And Wotech definitely agrees. He kind of has his nose up in the air just a little bit, and when that thing comes out of the water, he just snorts a couple of times disgustedly and puts his head down and starts trudging on, kind of pissed off.
Yeah.
All right. So it submerges once again. You guys continue on your way. The guards pick up speed once again. And as they do, you notice that on all sides and in front and behind, you see about 300 or 400 of these burst up from the sands around you. As they explode upwards, each one is easily the size of an elephant. As they burst up, it looks for a moment like they're going to actually attack your group, but each one very quickly skitters back and away from your path and just simply kind of retracts back into its shell and just waits. And all you see as you pass for the next several minutes are rows and rows of those horrible alien eyes looking at you from within the darkness of their shell, obviously willing to rush upon you at a moment's notice to devour you whole, like any other creature unfortunate to cross their path. You do see that there's some natural wildlife that clings to them, very comfortable with them, not seeming to fear them at all, which usually you guys associate with natural guardians of an area get that kind of reaction from a lot of the natural wildlife, because a lot of smaller creatures understand they have nothing to fear. So as you're watching these eyes watching you pass, all of you are on edge because you if this were to go south, you're not sure that your group would all be able to level enough force at this many strong opponents to not be, overwhelmed almost instantly. And if all these things get on top of you guys, that's a wrap. Nobody's surviving that shit. They all seem to just be waiting, though. They all seem to just be calm and obeying some kind of order, okay? Your guides have no fear, seemingly, of these creatures' emergence, and all they do is to continue pushing you guys on at a faster pace. You guys are actually moving relatively quickly already, but they inspire everybody to speed up a little bit more.
Can Ren cast Total Recall real quick and then stare at these things, their shells, not the shells, but their exoskeleton?
Yeah, absolutely.
He kind of looks at his own arms and legs real quick, and then kind of looks at them.
Okay.
Cast Total Recall.
Okay. You do notice something significant about the way the joints all seem to fit together in these particular crustaceans, and it makes an impression upon you that might be something useful to consider later on.
Are there any guides or guards near our section of this caravan?
Yeah, there's
earshot?
Yeah, there's a few of them close by.
I'll whistle towards one. Excuse me, sir or ma'am or person.
Let's see. Okay, one of these responds, and it looks over to you. It does have the cigarette in its mouth. You're not sure what the fuck the point of that is, but it does look over at you, Um, and it just has a single green light that blinks once where its cyclopean eye should be. And this little green light blinks at you one time, almost like asking what.
I will, I guess, take that as acknowledgement. And I'll ask, what is there possible that you or anyone that you know of could give me any information of these creatures?
Okay, at this, the light flashes red 3 times and then it turns and just starts walking forward. And you would guess, because of your um, affinity with machines, that basically you just asked a toaster a question it can't answer. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So
does not compute.
Yeah. You would guess these things could whip some ass, though. So it's got its uses.
You just got hit with the end of line.
All right. So, is there anything else you're wanting to do?
I'll just go, thanks.
All right.
Is there a way that I can identify any of these creatures with my lore of demons and monsters?
You know what? You don't even need to make a roll. You're able to tell right away that these are definitely just kind of large, kind of like mutated crustaceans. You don't think there's anything especially magical about them, and you've never heard of anything necessarily that's like a magical creature like this. But just from everything that you're able to see and your travels and everything that you know about this kind of life form, you would guess that it's just simply a giant crab. As far as why they're all obeying some kind of command, you're not sure. But you wouldn't guess that it's necessarily something specifically about them. You think that they're probably just kind of a more mundane creature that's being controlled by something.
Do I have an idea of Okama's background, like as an Atlantean? Do I know much about Atlanteans, or at least a general knowledge?
Yeah, you've got you know some basics. You know some basics. Most
is my knowledge of Atlanteans, are they familiar with aquatic life because of
from what you have usually heard as far as stereotypes, Atlanteans are they're usually kind of know-it-alls about most subjects, and not necessarily because people don't think that they're like that because they're assholes. It's because they're kind of just smarter than most normal humanoids, and they've done so fucking much more. They're extremely long-lived, and by the time you wind up getting to know like an adult Atlantean, you're dealing with somebody who's been alive hundreds of years and has probably lived lifetimes of different skills and jobs and statuses and all that. So for the most part, you and most of the rest of, humanoids regard Atlanteans as kind of having a little more knowledge and wisdom than most everybody else. They're kind of venerated. So yeah.
I'll turn to Akama and be like, and notice him taking pictures as well.
Before he says anything, I'm like, hey, look at those mutated crustaceans, run!
Do you know much of these, and also do you understand why they seem to be so almost hive mind? Is that a typical behavior? Because their chitin interests me quite a bit, actually.
And
they just
Akama has seen these before, and he definitely knows that they're just it's basically just large crabs that are being controlled somehow. So, but you've seen that kind of thing talked about before. These kind of creatures are kind of like dogs for the supernatural. Things like vampires and certain supernatural creatures can control certain kinds of more mundane creatures, and this is just one of those quote unquote guard dogs of the sea that's easy to kind of
Yeah, Akama replied.
If you could help keep an eye out, I don't think we'd be wise for us to maybe attempt to interact with one of these. A, to being fallen behind. B, to also being overwhelmed and destroyed by them. But if we happen to maybe find the husks of a perished one, maybe we could just grab a leg real quick, or
You
something.
want a leg or the shell?
Not the shell, the chitin, the exoskeleton, leg, arm, claw.
As he's asking that, can I look around to see if there's anything of that sort?
You start taking a look around, and you're having kind of a hard time while you're on the vehicle seeing very well, because there is some kind of, still large individuals kind of walking around. But as you kind of jump up and get on top of it and get a better vantage point, why don't you go ahead and roll a perception check for me?
Ooh, baby. Yes. Hiya! Perceive! Submit. Public roll.
Um,
14.
yeah, look at that perception bonus. God damn. Um, you you're looking off ahead of the group, and you're able to see that sticking up out of the sand near a little outcropping of some rock. It looks like one of these creatures may have had a loose section of chitin, and as it moved across the surface of the rock and scraped it, a small, maybe like a dinner plate size piece of the chitin kind of splintered off, and it's wedged into a little nook in the rock. A very rare find, because as you look around, you're not seeing any. There's definitely no dead bodies of these things. There's no nothing. And you're not
eaten by the time if something falls off.
right. Yeah. So this is
we're gonna eat it.
this is definitely a
Jump off the
rare
truck
find.
and I run and run toward it.
Okay. You head over, and as you do, it takes you within a few feet of one of these giant crustaceans. And as soon as you get within a few feet within reach of the shell, this thing's legs explode outward and burst down into the sand, and its whole body raises up off of the ground. The shell raises 3-4 feet off the ground, and it immediately stiffens up and bristles like it's going to attack. It stops right there, and as it does, you see that several of the guards have already trained their weapons on it, and two of the guards are moving towards you at a very rapid pace.
I'll
With
slam on my brakes and throw my rifle over the windshield of my vehicle just to get aim, just to help support if need be.
Okay, you go ahead and do that and get set up. Bear, is there anything you're wanting to do?
Noticing that there might be a fight popping off, Ymir dismounts Wotek and leans down to his shield brother as he unsheathes his hammer with both hands, the glint of the star metal in the sunlight coming down to where it's noticeable to everyone to see that the giant is ready to go. He looks down at Wotek and says in Gigantes, Wotek, Vakna, which means Wotek, shield wall. And then he prepares for eventuality of anything, whether combat's about to happen or not. Both him and his brother Bear are ready to go.
Okay.
My peripheral too. Can I also see the actions, a quick side glance of what the other crustaceans are doing, if they have also readied up in anything, or is it just the one he's close to?
You're not seeing any of the others reacting at all.
Reacted all? Okay.
And Bear, you get completely ready. Wotek gets down into his stance and is ready to go. And
Is there any way that I can quickly scoop this plate size thing fast enough to dodge?
Yeah, you reach down and snatch this fucking thing, and as you're doing that, you're already starting to kind of rotate away from the crustacean. Just trying to put some distance between you and it. So you kind of reach out with one hand and are already kind of doing a side step pivot as you snatch the thing up and start getting back closer to the group. As you do that, the thing just simply stands there and doesn't seem to take any real action as you haven't moved any closer to it. And as you continue stepping...
Still in its ready position, though? It hasn't relaxed?
Yeah, because he's still basically right next to it. But as he takes a few more steps, you guys all see that it seems to slowly start lowering itself back down. And as it does, before it fully retreats back into its shell, it shakes all of its legs violently, causing a really loud, kind of threatening rattle against the shell itself. And then it settles back in. Right. All right, so you have grabbed your piece of chitin. You return back over. The guards quickly put a hand on your shoulder and just kind of guide you back into the group while continuing to keep their weapons on the crustacean.
They shoot me to death because I'm going away from the group.
Once again, do I notice from any of the other crustaceans after it does this shaking, threatening, like back the fuck up gesture, do I notice any of the other ones react, or are they all still just frozen?
That's a good question. As this thing does that little motion, you notice, because you're paying attention, you notice that all of the others that are in your peripheral vision are doing that same little shaking motion at the very end. It's just much more slight, but they all echo it in real time. Okay?
All right, let's go.
All right. You guys continue on forward. Did you want to hand that chitin over?
I put inside of I guess what is it, like a four-seater? With the turret on the back?
Yeah, it's four-seater with a bed in the back, and then
I just throw it in the back seat.
I can also just throw it in the back seat. I would just
you could check it out later.
Yeah, I would motion to you and then also nod my head and be like, "Thank you." Although I was just curious, I wasn't expecting you to act so quickly. That was...
Yeah, I don't know. I just
slightly unnerving.
It is what it is.
It seems like they're almost like proximity sentries, but they're all linked, it seems. If that one would have attacked, I don't think it would have just been that one.
It's all good, man.
All right.
Ymir doesn't relax. He, after having all of these almost dust-ups today,
is on edge.
Blood is through the roof, and he lets this known as he resheathes this hammer and Wotek calms down. Ymir punches the ground as hard as he can, leaving a visible fucking dent in the ground where his fist was, and the giant lets out a primal growl that is heard by everybody in the group that is nothing but pure rage distilled in the wilds of the Siberian mountains.
All right, but and as you do this, all of the crustaceans begin clicking and clacking their legs up against their shells in a fucking frenzy of activity, as though they're all fucking set on edge.
I'll just go.
After Ymir had his little rage party, he sees this hammer, centers himself, counts Wotek again, gets back on the bear, and continues with the rest of the group.
I gotta have a good tantrum like twice a day. I totally understand, man. I totally get that. So sometimes
looks back at Ymir with the smoke coming out of his ears and just kind of wipes the sweat off his brow.
Fuck yeah. Your guy's gonna flip the fuck out, man. He's gonna flip the fuck out. He needs some grass.
Ren's gonna find like a small like animal soon and just like provoke it just to get Ymir to chill the fuck out. Just so that we know, like, oh, there's a cat. I'm gonna fucking provoke it.
Right. All right, guys. All right. So keeping us going here. We got so much to cover, and I know everybody's got limited time. I don't know how much longer everybody can go, but
Keep going, keep going.
all right. So as you guys continue along on the path, you quickly leave the crabs behind. The sand quickly starts turning and giving way to those ruins that you saw up ahead. And as you get closer, you guys now see
Ooh.
that
Deception Beach.
you're going to have to move inland just a little bit and kind of skirt the edge of the ruins. There's still several yards of good solid ground that goes right along the edge, but it's definitely going to get a little tighter packed, and you guys are going to be right up against the water with the ruins on the other side. So as you continue on, as soon as you break past the very first kind of old husk of a skyscraper, you guys see that maybe 50 of these creatures come flooding out from inside of that first building. Now, as they come flooding out, you notice that right away the guards don't take any hostile action at all, and very quickly you all gather that these things you're supposed to meet up with them. It's like this is part of whatever the escort you would assume is. So as you guys move forward, these creatures fall into 5 groups that basically space around your group in a circle. They are now on the perimeter outside of the other guards that had already formed around you. And these creatures have an interesting look. You can tell, Ren, right away that they are all using Techno Wizard gear, and that they're not only using that gear, but they're trained as basically like battle wizards. They're like combat oriented, but they're using TW gear. And you would guess that each one of these creatures, although you can all tell that they're only about 3 feet tall, each one of these creatures is a pretty capable warrior. They also look, although they're kind of smaller, they're rows and rows of tiny needle-like teeth and extremely sharp hooked claws on their hands and feet would make them an extremely deadly combatant in close, especially in numbers, and that's even if they didn't have their Techno Wizard gear. So you guys definitely get the feeling that these things could definitely tear some shit up. As they fall in, everything is silent. Everything moves forward without anybody having to really engage each other. All of the forces and individual units seem to understand what they're doing, and this is just a very routine practice for everybody. You guys head forward, and very quickly you pass through the ruins, and you come upon what is essentially, as the sun is starting to set in the distance, what is essentially a outcropping of civilization from this really hostile and barren area. You see that the entire...
real quick,
sure.
Take a look, just as I view these guys and notice the Techno Wizard stuff, could I do a quick, just kind of inspection of their gear and do another cast of Total Recall just to kind of get a...
Yeah. 100%.
That knowledge of what I'm seeing and try to, so I can remember it later, even since it's going to be such a short encounter.
100%. Something, if you want to make a note of this, something that you gather is that they have a really interesting use of like charms that they seem to use for some of their gear. And you start wondering what the significance of that could be. Using charms in TW gear, where you're attaching these small like talismans to things.
All little talismans, necklace pieces, and headgear, and all those different like, bands.
Exactly.
Like
something you're unfamiliar with, but because of the advanced nature of their gear, it definitely gets you thinking. So, okay. So, as you guys pull up into these structures and start making your way through the street that goes through this little section of civilization, you notice that these small diminutive bluish creatures are the main inhabitants of this area. There's also some humanoids that seem to inhabit it as well. Most of the structures are built from reclaimed shipwreck uh, parts that have been stacked in strange and odd ways. The architecture definitely doesn't look planned out. It looks more like very capable, good with their hands, hardy individuals had lots of material to work with, and they just started banging shit together. And however it turned out, that's how it turned out. Um, as you guys look around, you see that this place isn't kept clean at all. There's sewers, there's just open sewage flowing through the street. You see that there's trash and debris everywhere. You notice that there aren't a whole lot of defenses other than a few turrets and automated, small arms that basically look like they're more for anti-personnel purposes and keeping the peace rather than for general settlement defense. And it makes all of you kind of wonder, well, what's protecting this place from all the crazy shit we've seen around? As you continue moving through, you very quickly come to what you would assume is the main port that you guys have been heading towards. And as you do, you look around and you see that there are 10 of these units all standing around the entrance to what is obviously the more technologically advanced port area.
Can you redisplay that real quick? I'm sorry.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
There we go.
Misclicked. Thank you.
Hey, it's no problem. So yeah, these things all seem like extremely heavy duty mechs that are expressly designed for making war. They almost look like overkill for guard units, but you would guess that that's exactly what they are because of the way they're positioned around the front of the port, the entrance, and the way they have kind of tactical positions in elevated spots in different locations around this area. You would guess that this is the main like security checkpoint for the port itself. And you're also noticing that the sky is starting to darken very quickly, not only because the sun has pretty much fully set, but because some really, really strong weather is rolling in. You're noticing that there's mist already in the air, but you're getting slight stings every once in a while that are the telltale signs of ice being mixed in with the water. So you would guess that this could actually be a pretty bad storm, as you're all pretty familiar with, the way those kinds of things develop. As you look up, you're not able to tell exactly how bad the storm is presently, but you're able to see constant flashes of lightning. And as they flash and illuminate the sky, you can see that in different areas around you, the rain is coming down extremely hard. And in some areas, it looks like it's already turning to hail. It's a weird mixture because you can see, maybe 100 yards of one kind of weather and 100 yards of a different kind stacked right together. So this could definitely be a storm you don't want to be out in the open for.
I'm guessing thunder is cracking pretty loudly along with this the lightning strikes.
None whatsoever. There's
None?
thunder,
Okay.
no thunder at all. But the lightning is bright enough to illuminate the entire area around you, bright as day. It's a phenomenon you guys aren't familiar with.
Do any of these mechs resemble anything like I've seen, like maybe it was like the self-defense at my uncle's tower or anything like that? I've seen not just here, but in since arriving at the first encampment.
No, it's not really a design you're familiar with. You've seen things of comparable technological level, but not anything of this design before.
Sure. Okay.
Does it look like anything that the Russian warlords would have had?
Actually, surprisingly enough, it does. It looks very similar to several of the models that you were familiar with of your hated enemy. But these things are of a more modern design. than what a lot of the warlords would use.
Less crude.
Yes. Less of a reverence for nature, or even looking like a organic, organism.
Right.
Each one is approximately 20 feet tall, look to be bristling with weapons, and the shoulder blades, upon further inspection, you guys can tell that they're actually wings that would fold down to be parallel with the ground. And if that's accurate, it means that with flight systems, these things could be really, really impressive on the battlefield. So, with some mobility on something that big and heavily armored, it can really change things up. So, all of you get the impression that these things are really deadly and powerful.
Ymir looks at Wotek, taps him twice, and says in his ear, Manas Heja, which means eyes up, pointing to the mech, telling Wotek to keep his eyes firmly trained on what this mech does, because the way it looks is bringing back bad memories for Ymir.
All right, say that very last part again.
I said, what part cut out for you?
I'm sorry, what's that? It was cutting out there.
I asked you what part cut out for you, Odin, so I can say it again. What's the last thing you heard?
You were saying something about Ymir. You were looking around at something?
Oh no, I said Ymir leans over and whispers to Wotek, or says in his ear, Wotek, Manas Heja, which means in Vanese, it means eyes up, telling him to keep his eyes trained on this Wotek, or this robot, because it's giving him bad memories or flashbacks to his war days in Jotunheimer.
Okay. And at this, he peels one massive rubbery lip back from his fangs and lets out a low snarl in agreement. You could tell he'd like nothing more than to tear this thing apart, bolt by bolt. As you guys proceed forward, very quickly, you come up to the edge of the port, and you're ushered through without any real ceremony or procedure. You guys just really quickly advance up to the ship that you're going to be taking. As you guys look at the ship, it's fairly dark, but you're able to see pretty well that this is the general makeup of the ship. The only thing that's different is you do see that it's got some sails and things attached on the top, almost like it can use either conventional propulsion or basically collapsible sails. You're not sure if there's some kind of high-tech sails or what, but you definitely see rigging and shit that appears to be able to be deployed to, take advantage of the winds if necessary. You do see that it's heavily armed and armored. And it does have several support craft all set up and ready to go. The configuration's a little different, but generally this is the look of it. Very large, very sturdy vessel, and obviously able to transport, quite a bit of cargo.
Including vehicles and everything?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You guys approach the side at the end of the port, and as you do, the lightning continues and seems to be intensifying. You guys are ushered up some of the loading ramps, and as you approach, you notice that there hasn't been any procedure where any of you are being charged or anything like that. So obviously, like Nicodemus said, this is going to be like, free passage for this trip. As the weather's getting worse, they quickly kind of usher you guys in. Is there anything
Do they stop
anybody wants to
us
do?
while we're making our way on the ship? Do they check our weapons?
Nope.
Do they?
Nope.
Okay.
Which is rare. That's a great question because usually in situations like this, in an enclosed fucking space,
Right.
no way would any decent security team allow people to keep weapons and all this, that, and the other. You would guess that because of the nature of this endeavor, they've probably been given instructions that, I mean, you know, these are dangerous individuals. Let them keep their shit. If they get out of line, we'll just kill them. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, all right. So you guys load up. Anything anybody's wanting to do as you're about to get on the ship?
Kind of look over everybody and see who's getting on, and kind of keep an eye out for Harmony and her compatriot, and seeing what they're doing. Since they said to reconvene with them within 10 minutes, and not once have I talked to them. I just followed where they went, but I actually haven't had a discussion with them. So maybe attempt to verify at least with them, or give them a heads up that we're
okay
with them.
You lithely slip through the crowd, and you're able to quickly get up to where she is standing with the sarcophagus and her companion. And as you do, she looks over at you and nods with, you know, rain pouring down her face. And she says,
Well met, wizard. Did you find the trip and the sights to your liking?
I found them unnerving and bizarre, to say the least. I know you said 10 minutes. I'm sorry. There, so much happened in that short span. I hope that my decision making hasn't cost me anything by taking so long.
Not at all. There is much to do in preparation for the tasks ahead, and we all must get our bearings.
She looks longingly off in the distance as a huge bolt of lightning illuminates her face, and you see a hint of sorrow, maybe regret, and she says,
I am not from these lands. I am from far, far away.
Okay, as she says this, you notice that she gets a kind of grimace that comes over her face, and she kind of gnashes her teeth. And she looks pissed for just a second, and then her demeanor lightens, and she seems to find her focus once again, and calm comes over her face. She returns to the manner that you've found her so far, and she says,
Forgive me. The past should remain there. What is it that you and your companions search for?
He says this as you guys are slowly walking up the ramp, and through your efforts and hers together, you slowly are getting closer to your companions. That gap between you that you had to close to get to her is closing up. So you're pretty close to where they are, and they're starting to be able to overhear you.
I missed slightly what she said. She said, "Forgive me, past."
She said, "Forgive me. The past should stay." She basically said the past should just remain forgotten. So
basically, that the face she made was basically her thinking about something that bothered her, and then okay.
Yes. Okay, and so she's asked you guys basically what it is that you're looking for as you're all starting to kind of get grouped up, heading up the ramp.
I'm still not quite certain.
Okay, she nods at this, and she looks over at you, Akama.
I am search for knowledge.
Okay. She nods at this and she looks at you really seriously for just a moment, like she's kind of trying to kind of search your eyes to see if there's anything she can kind of glean about your character or anything briefly. And after just a brief moment, she kind of nods her head, very sure of herself, kind of like she's just absolutely figured out the answer to a math problem that she had been trying to carefully work on for a while. And as she kind of nods, you see that her disposition towards you seems to have brightened a little bit. She seems to have just decided that you're okay. And as she does that, she turns her gaze over to you, Bear, and implies that she's asking for an answer to the same question.
Does she have a universal translator built in with her augments? Would she be able to understand Ymir if he spoke?
You have no idea whatsoever, but when you heard her speak, it was in perfect Russian.
Okay, gotcha. Well, then
the rest of you heard English, by the way.
Ymir looks at this warrior who he's noticed her in passing since the time at the camp because of her armor. He recognized the wolf heads on her shoulders almost instantly. And so he's had somewhat of a curiosity about her, but he looks at her with sort of a deep stoic look in his eyes, but you can tell that his answer is actually from the giant's heart. And he looks gruffly and says, "Peace," and bows his head and bangs his fist against his chest like he's finishing a sentence with a fellow honored warrior. He can tell by her presence and her pose that she is cut from a similar cloth as him. Maybe not as primal, but she's a warrior nonetheless.
Okay, and she lets out a thunderous war scream that makes everybody standing around kind of turn and fucking jump a little bit. And as she does, she does the full on Xena. She's like,
and
as she does, everybody turns around and is starting to stare. And she bangs her fist against her chest extremely hard, actually producing a few sparks off of her armor. And then at the waist,
Knight's pistol strapped across her chest and shoots the giant next to her. Which
right? Those old flintlocks are touchy, man. So as she does a deep bow. Actually, she takes a knee as she pounds her chest once. And as she stands, she says,
"Well said, Sir Giant. I would know if your companion would allow me a word."
And at this, she stares over at Wotek and kind of motions with her head towards him as she turns back towards you and kind of raises her eyebrows, wondering if you mind.
He taps Wotek's head twice like it's okay, and Wotek's eyes light up. The ethereal glow lights up. The runes that race across his body speed up as he almost cocks his head at her like he's listening, but he's curious because normally, he's not addressed like that, especially by somebody he doesn't know. But he is completely willing to listen to what the Lady Knight has to say.
Okay. She takes up position kind of next to him as you guys are moving forward up the ramps. And as you're getting close to the top, she just kind of crouches for a second and whispers like a word or two, completely inaudible, right into his ear. And at this, as soon as she does, he puts his head down low, and nobody else would pick this up, but you see it very clearly. He starts actually laughing. He starts barking laughter in a way that you've only heard him do 2, maybe 3 times in all of the time you guys have been companions. And the depth at which whatever she said tickled him is you've never heard him this, like, he completely loses his cool. He laughs like a fucking moron in his own special way, and you're the only one that can pick up on it, but you do recognize this. And as soon as that happens, not only did she salute you in the proper manner, but this makes you realize she is somebody that you probably don't need to worry about in this strange new land. So, all right. With that being said, she quickly looks back over at you, Ren, and she says, very well. She says,
I think where we are heading next is a great place for all of you to start looking for your goals. We are a part of the Metadine group. Our numbers are few in this world, as we have come from far away to make a name for ourselves. We also seek various goals.
okay, and at this, she turns to her companion, the male, and she nods to him. And he turns towards you guys and takes his hand off of the sarcophagus, stops guiding it, and she takes over. And he begins speaking and says, he says, this ship will take us, and at this he's quiet for a moment, and he mumbles, hopefully uneventfully, and his voice picks back up, and he says, across the lake to Sinner's Cove. He says, that will give us the opportunity to resupply and outfit ourselves and get rest if needed, or to embark to several locations close to the cove.
I'll hear this and recall the Sinner's Cove, and then look quickly to the sarcophagus and remember the containment pod and pilgrim, and kind of just ponder to myself what the little bits I heard when I was walking away from them earlier.
Okay. All right. Okay. You kind of focus on that, and you're kind of locked in on it, considering what there might be to learn there. He says that some of the locations that are accessible from Sinner's Cove will lead you north, and after you leave this large area that surrounds the lake, he says far north of here you'll find falls that continue north and lead up towards the direction of KeterFall. He says you can easily just set out yourself once you get around the lake's perimeter. You can easily just set out yourself directly towards KeterFall. But he shakes his head quickly and says, but trust me, you don't want to do that. He says, if you take your time and explore a bit and find a functional and established route, your chances are much higher that you'll arrive at KeterFall for the trials and competition intact and in one piece. He says these are extremely dangerous lands, and he says much of it is untamed by mortals. He says the scope and scale of some of the powers in this area are truly of epic proportions, and he says one does not want to waste one's vitality before the main event. At this, he kind of looks around at some of the other mercs that are, loading up as well, and he shakes his head and he says, "Watch what company you keep." At this, he kind of looks ahead and realizes that you guys are at the top of the ramp and you're about to head in. And he says, we have our own arrangements for where we will be staying for the voyage. He says, I advise that you stay in the main hold and do not antagonize the crew. He says they will give you a brief. They will give you a brief overrun of what the expectations of your conduct will be. He says, listen very, very carefully to the security briefing and simply obey what they tell you. He says, once we arrive at Sinner's Cove, he says, we will rendezvous with you at the local bar. He says,
does this bar have a name? I'll jump in real quick.
He says, trust me, you'll be able to find it. And with this, he kind of smiles slyly just a little bit. He says it's the only one in town, and it's the only building that will be brightly lit. At this, he says, very well, any final questions, as he turns, puts his hand back on the sarcophagus, and begins to take off on his own.
And is she still here?
Yeah, she's standing there with her hand on it now. I mean, they're both gonna, they're getting ready to take off on their own.
Before they walk away, I'll say to Harmony, excuse me, how did you know to search for me? How did you, why me? Why did you seek me out?
At this, she just looks at you very simply and honestly, and she just says,
the bad monk bade me to do so, and so I did.
Okay. All right. Anybody want to do anything else? You're literally standing at the edge of the ship. Anything else? You don't really feel like she's being deceptive.
She hasn't seemed to be that way at all the whole time.
No, and she seemed very forthright with how she just answered that. So.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
All right. Anything anybody else wants to do?
Whether Ren could find could decode the information that Fleck gave Ymir earlier. The giant kind of walks over to Ren and points at his bag because he's not picking it up again. He's letting Ren pick it up.
He all points to his fucking waist and he's just grunting.
Well, signs.
Signs, yeah, absolutely. That could get awkward. Awkward. Oh, shit.
Ymir
kind of look down and kind of try to guess what they're gesturing towards.
You see that he's definitely pointing to this little, like, pouch. And you would guess that
he's pointing to one of the small bags on his, the leather armor on his belt.
I'll look down at myself at first, not fully understanding, and look for like a pouch that matches around where he's looking on himself, and start reaching into my own, kind of like, do you want me to get something?
Yes.
But I'll be reaching in my own pouch, confused that, like, because I'm not sure that, I wouldn't understand that you're trying to tell me, like, grab it from me, because I would understand why wouldn't you just grab it yourself at first. So at the moment, I'm grabbing myself, being like, do you want me to do something from me? So I'm kind of giving you a look like, as I'm reaching to my own pouch, like, huh? Giving you like the what?
Ymir nods his head and points to his own pouch on his belt and points to Red.
I'll move my hand from my pouch and then point at his pouch and then point at myself.
Yep. He nods it. He nods his
reaching
head.
Some dude's pouch without consent.
All right. So as
I'll slowly reach into the pouch while making eye contact, being like, "This is okay, right?"
The eye contact is what makes it weird.
And then I reach into the pouch and find out there's a hole in the pouch with his dick in it.
Right. This ain't the movie theater popcorn trick, right?
You set yourself up for that one,
right?
You reach it in the pouch.
Is my dick in a sack?
All right, so you you're able to find what he's talking about, and as you withdraw it, it's obviously some kind of data chip, and you're confident that the small mini computer that you have, your little personal computer, easily would be able to read it and give you whatever the fuck's on it. So, okay.
What I have on me or in my vehicle?
What do you have on you? You have a little personal,
Yeah. I wasn't sure if it was.
Yeah. So yeah, you have that now, and you definitely can read it. You guys step up onto the platform where you're entering the side of the ship, and all right. As you guys look over the edge, you see a massive cargo bay that easily is large enough. Just this section is easily large enough to store several extremely large mechs, vehicles, all kinds of shit. This whole area is relatively open, and along the walls and stuff, not only is there loading gear and shit, but there's also several very small like lounge areas where it's got kind of flip down tables, some bench seating. There's a couple of larger seats that would be applicable to like giant size characters. So there's a few amenities where people can sit down, get comfortable. There's no seats with like seat belts. There's none of that kind of stuff. You're not seeing TVs or anything like that up, but you do definitely see that there's at least places to sit and get the hell out of the way so you're not just out in the middle of the cargo area.
Anything giant sized so I can sit my big ass down.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, good. Okay.
Absolutely. All right, you guys, give me 2 seconds here.
I will have to jump off soon. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. No worries.
My group is gathering.
How soon is it?
Like 5-10 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
No worries at all.
7:30 typically. What time I gotta go?
Okay, so I think we've got this all set. Give me 2 seconds here. This should be maps. And we should be able to go like that. And I just got one more quick thing I need to check on. I think that should all be good. All right.
2 minutes.
So
I'm going to hit the restroom real quick. 2 minutes. Sorry about that, guys.
Oh, no worries. No worries. We're good. Okay, so we're all good here. Map. And now we're just going to pull tokens. And go. Comma. Ren. And Ymir. Okay. Now, I hope this fucking works, guys, because I've been setting this up for a little bit. But as you guys step into the ship,
My apologies. I am back.
oh, no worries. As you guys step into the ship, you see the doors on the ship start closing up. Can everybody see around them?
Mine is black.
Mine's
Black. All black screen.
Okay, give me 1 second here. Control L. So, Akama, are you? Can Akama see anything around him at all? It's all black.
I cannot see anything.
I don't see
I
my
see a
tiles or
black screen.
anything. Yeah, I just see a black square.
Same.
Okay.
I don't see my token or anyone else's tokens. I just see a black square.
Maybe, let me see here. Okay, an Overlord Bear should have... Sorry, this will take me just 1 second. I think we're on... Yeah, that's the problem. My bad, guys. So we need you guys on the token layer. Can you can see something now? Okay, perfect, perfect.
Yes, I can.
My bad.
I don't know about everybody else.
Yeah, I'm gonna get each one of you guys now. It puts you guys on the map layer
You can see.
instead of the token layer.
Very little, but yeah, it's dark.
Okay. There we go.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. Still learning.
No,
Okay, so as you guys all get in very quickly, most of the guards stay outside on the dock, and very quickly the doors close. You guys hear the locks fire off, and you realize that you guys are sealed in, and it is time for you guys to all start heading out. As you look around, you see that there are definitely some turrets around you. There's plenty of space to spread out, as we discussed before. The internal defenses look like they're relatively serious. And if you guys would like, you can either settle in right now. You would guess that you're still going to have a few minutes before the ship takes off. You could settle in right now, or if you'd like to walk around just a little bit, you can look around the ship. It's up to you.
Hell yeah, I'm gonna walk around.
I'm gonna have to make that happen next session because I gotta.
Okay.
He can settle in and go to sleep or something.
Bury you in the sand this time.
We can.
I'm sorry, bro.
We can call it there. We can call it there. No worries. So,